So I've heard of a lot of people, and I mean, for the past 5 years that the game's been out, 5 or 6 years that the game's been out, I've heard from a lot of people how good Hollow Knight was, and I'm here to tell you guys whether you've played or haven't played Hollow Knight. I think that what they were saying was a bunch of fucking bullshit. Everything that they've said about Hollow Knight, about how good it is, about how great the mechanics and everything are, scrap it. Everything they said is a lie, because I'm here to tell you that the game isn't good. The game is a fucking masterpiece. That game, I'm still yet to understand how the game has just cruised under me. Well, not technically cruised under me, but how it has taken me this long to play the game fully. So the title might confuse quite a few of you guys, so I'm here to give you a quick background lore before I tell you what I like and dislike about the game. So basically, I got the game around 2018, I think, because the game came out in 2017. And I had a friend of mine that was telling me how good the game was. And I was looking around YouTube, and whenever I'd pop around Reddit, I'd see it around Reddit, how people were just buzzing about the game. So anyway, I finally got it in 2018 and decided to tackle the game for myself. Played it for 10 minutes, put it down. Came back to it the day after, played it for 10, 20 minutes, put the game back down. Came back to it the week after, put it down. Gradually got more and more, a few weeks, month, a year. Finally came back to it in Corona, decided to do a completely new build, well, not build, a completely new save game. Played it for 1 or 2 hours, put it down. Just kept putting the game down. And I didn't know why. I wasn't in love with the game when I was playing it, but I wasn't bored either. It just felt like a decent game. I felt like I could have finished it, but I just didn't and didn't want to. I just kept putting it down. Maybe because of the stuff that I was kind of doing at the time, but I'm not really sure. Anyway, at some point a few months ago, I decided to do a hit list of games I wanted to play. These three are Hollow Knight, Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm playing now because obviously I finished Hollow Knight, and then Sekiro is going to be my next one. Anyway, that's beside the point. Finally, after that time, I fell in love with the game. The game is so good, and I don't know why it took me this long to finally fall in love with the game, but I did. I did, and I finished it. Well, kind of finished it, but I'll get into that in a bit. So I could do a full video saying how this game is a masterpiece and what makes this game a masterpiece. But I'm going to start off with some of the things I don't like, because that's a very short list. I feel like it's the best thing to start off with. So the first thing I want to talk about is the way the player, or the knight, sorry, moves when he's charging. So if you haven't played Hollow Knight, to heal, you have to hold down O. And when you hold down O, the little knight does like a little Super Saiyan charge up thing where he kind of goes, ah! Oh, give me fucking 1 more health. And he kind of just charges up until, boom, he gets a health. So you have to do it for 1, 2, 3, like, between 1 or 3 seconds before someone hits you and you pop a new health out. In that animation, you can't move. Now, there were a lot of times, especially with bosses, which I struggle with quick bosses anyway, but there were a lot of quick bosses in which I needed to heal, because I actually just needed to heal. And I popped the healing off, or tried to pop the healing off, and I see an attack coming, so I'm obviously, your brain's going to go, I'm not going to get the heal off, I must get out the way. But if you let go and try to move, the character doesn't move straight away. There's like half a second, maybe a second delay, because he has to go off from this animation back down to his standard and then to move. And I know a lot of people are going to say skill issue, and it kind of is. But it is kind of annoying when you just want to move out the way and you have to wait for your character to kind of like de-animate himself to then move. Because there's another issue, or not issue, with the game, but I'll go into that. In fact, no, I'll go into it right now. The game isn't easy. The game doesn't even have a difficulty setting. And if you have a lot of new gamers coming in, and I'm not a new gamer, but I'm new to this game, I came into it and I was like, fuck me, like I'm just getting like spat around. And don't get me wrong, like I was basically built in the lab. I was just pumped with gaming genes. I'm practically a pure-born gamer, and even I found the game super hard. And to have that little like delay kind of go on wasn't necessarily a skill issue. I wasn't like, fuck, this game's shit, but I was just kind of like, kind of annoying, especially when I was fighting against the Radiants, and all the swords were falling down. When he has that like middle bit where he's got the spikes on the sides and all the swords are raining down before you get onto the platform, the floating platforms. I was like, fuck, I need to heal, because I didn't know exactly what was coming next for the next phase. And when I saw one of the spikes coming down, I was like, oh, gotta move out the way. But then he's kind of like de-animating himself, and I was like, just fucking move. I don't know why. It was my biggest gripe of the game. That was the one thing that really annoyed me. It did it with a lot of bosses. And it's my only real gripe. That's my only one con. I have two more things to talk about, but they're not necessarily big. The second thing, and this is what I mean by it wasn't very big, because I feel like this may have been also my fault for not unlocking stuff, is how scarce beetle stations are. I forgot what they're called because I've not played the game in like a few days now. I kind of finished like 2 or 3 days ago, and I decided to do a review now. But beetle stations felt very scarce, so there were a lot of times I'd die, and it would send you back to the other. So let's say you die in the middle of nowhere, and it would send you back to the last bench that you've healed on, which is usually next to a beetle station. You would then have to travel all the way there or go to a beetle station that's next to it. But most of the time, there's no beetle station next to kind of like middle grounds that you're in. So sometimes it would take you not a long time, like 2-3 minutes to get back to where you were. But those 2-3 minutes getting past mobs and kind of doing the whole shebang again, especially with how hard the game is, can get a little bit tedious. I know I was fighting the mantis bosses, the 3 mantis bosses. And I kept spawning back in, was it Queen Station? The station next to all the disgusting fungal bits, because I kind of went through the fungal bit down to the mantis boss. And losing to the mantis boss like I think I lost to it like 6-7 times, but having those 6-7 times where I'm having to like track back 3-4 minutes just to fight them, to then lose, to then track back again, I kind of found it a little bit annoying, but it could have just been because I didn't find a proper place to sit down. Like, there might be a bench nearby or another beetle station nearby that I just didn't see. I can't remember that well, but it didn't seem like it. So, I don't know. I feel like there could have been more beetle stations, or at least more benches present, so you can maybe just have a checkpoint bench instead of a heal bench. So it still is hard, but like you don't have to run around as much. My personal opinion. And the last thing I want to talk about, and this is very specifically my take. I don't think this ruins the game in any fraction of the way. It's just something I don't like. One of my favorite games my favorite game is Elden Ring. By a country mile. I think that game is near perfection. But one thing I hear about Elden Ring, and it kind of seeps into Hollow Knight here, or, well, I guess Hollow Knight would seep into Elden Ring considering the release dates. It's that, like, lore dumping, or, like, that slight crumble trail. So both games will give you like a base story, like a very plain, straight path to follow, but it literally won't tell you anything. And the amount of lore hidden in and around everywhere is so vast, but it doesn't tell you. It's kind of like, travel to here, read this, remember this, link this back to the thing you found 2 hours ago. And it's like, it's good if you have a little bit of that for the people who really want to dig deep and really want to find these things. But for the average gamer, I can't even remember the story very well. That's how much I just didn't connect the pieces because of how crumbled, trailed everything was. To me, it just felt like I was a knight. I wanted to unlock, I don't even know what it was called, the Hollow Nest, the bit with the, I'm sorry if this is spoiling, but the bit where you actually go to meet the Hollow Knight and eventually fight the Radiance and the Knight or whatever. And I kind of just don't know what was in between it. Like, there was 3 masks. Again, I don't know what they're called. I think they're called, I'm not even going to try because I'll probably get just berated in the comments. But I don't know what they're called. I don't know what function they served particularly. And it might just be because I suck at reading. If you guys are from my first channel, main channel, I do suck at reading. But I don't know. I just feel like crumbly trails for stories doesn't really work for the mass public, just for the really hardcore fans. And I don't know. It's just something that rubbed me a bit the wrong way. But again, it's just my personal opinion. I don't think it makes the game worse in any form of way. Now that we're done spitting on the game and treating it like the absolute dirt that it is, let's talk about the good things. These come far more than the cons. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the areas of the game. Every single bit of the areas is super unique. And that's down to the art style. That's down to the way the areas are kind of like made and structured. It's down to even the mobs going around it. Every single mob in every area is different. You can have a mob that explodes. You can have a mob that kind of has fungal spores. You have a mob that flies. You have a mob that's prickly. You have a mob that's maybe a bit stronger, like built like a knight because you're next to like a castle bit. So different. Every single area feels like its own unique thing. This might be a bit of an exaggeration here, but it almost feels like you're entering a completely new game with some areas because the foes, the atmosphere, the music, everything is so different to everything else. It feels like I was over there, but now I'm fucking over here. Like, where the fuck have I gone? It's almost like going from Argentina to like Denmark or something like that. That's how different everything is. Everything feels so in place and so out of place at the same time. Sorry, I hit you guys. I'm sorry. You okay? it was such a weird and bizarre experience to have. It was great. It felt like the game kept, when it was almost getting to a point where I was getting bored, or not bored. Bored isn't the right word, but it almost felt like you go through an area and like, okay, I understand what's going on. Bang, new area, and it was so cool, and it was so nice to see that. And kind of to link in with that, the other thing I have to say about the game, the art style is beautiful. Again, if you guys have come from my main channel, one of the things I preach about and the main choice of games that I pick is stuff that's visually and artistically beautiful. And this game is again, for lack of a better word, the art style for this game is a masterpiece. Genuinely, everything about this game is so good, down from the music and especially the art style. It's just so, so good, and I can't like praise it anymore. The other strength that this game has is its movement. So when I kind of started, the one thing I really, really hated for some reason was the fact that I'd hit something and bounce back. If you guys haven't played, when you hit something, you kind of like, your character pushes back a bit. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that, especially with like the first few bosses I fought when I was hit with more than 1 or 2 or 3 mobs. Flying back was a really, really annoying. And then at one point I fought one boss and I kind of jumped over him, hit him, and then jumped back, and I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. And you can kind of sync attacks so that you jump, double jump, hit, and then you kind of have another double jump. So it really allows you to be really creative with a lot of fights, especially fights where I'll talk about it later, but there's a fight with the mantises. It's a secondary fight. You fight with the mantises. They're kind of like coming all over, left, right, up, down, just fucking everywhere, like mashing the AB12 GTA code where everything fucking starts spawning in everywhere at once. And having that double jump, kind of like being able to damage, being able to move quickly, maneuver yourself, is just so, so good. And it's not only with mobs you do it, you can kind of hit little things around the environment to not get hit. So sometimes you have saws, especially in the Palace of Pain, and you can kind of just maneuver yourself around that. It's so, so smart. And having the movement be that fluid and that expressive is really, really good. And at the start, yeah, it might feel weird because there's not a lot of games that lets you hit and you kind of like bounce back. It's kind of a weird notion to start off with. But it does become very, very cool, especially when you start to understand how the game works and you kind of become more comfortable, I'd say, with just the game's mechanics. Next thing I want to talk about is bosses. I kind of talked about a bit about mobs before when I was talking about the areas, and actually, talking about mobs, special fuck you to this guy. This guy literally made my life hell. He might as well have been a boss because the amount of times I fucking died to him. I died to him probably more than any other thing in the game. But yeah, like mobs are super, super unique and varied in the game, and bosses are even more so. Every single boss, I can't remember fighting a boss and thinking, wow, that kind of feels like this boss that I fought. Apart from the dream counterparts, like I know you have the Lost of Kin dream, you have the big knight guy with a sledgehammer thing. I forgot what he's called. Apart from those, which are obviously the same, they just have a little bit of different attacks. They're a little bit quicker, do a bit more damage. Apart from those, every other boss feels so unique. I genuinely, I didn't think, oh, I've kind of fought this boss. Oh, I know what to do here because a different boss did this. Every single boss, I was like, what am I doing? I'm gonna die like 7 times before I can do this. And it was super fun. It really, again, it's kind of like the areas. It's like you almost get to a point where like, oh, I understand the game, and then the game's like, no, shut up. No, you don't. You understand it. Shut up. Here's a boss. He's gonna fuck you 7 times because you don't know what's going on. Kind of like that. And it's really, really nice because, like I said, the game is very difficult. My personal opinion, because I think I'm alright at games, they weren't difficult to the point where you should rage or it's practically impossible. I think they're just that if you enjoy games and you enjoy a challenge, it's really, really good. And to have that very varied thing. So if a boss is very samey, if you have a boss before that's kind of like the same as the one next to each other, it almost feels like the challenge isn't there because you kind of know what to expect. But having the bosses so varied and so different keeps the challenge fresh because you never know what's coming. You have to learn a new set of skills. You have to learn in a new set of environments. It's just really, really fun. And I enjoy how they kind of balanced everything together to always keep the game fresh. Every hour you play, you've got something fresh, something new, a new challenge, a new thing. And it's so, so good. In addition to the movement, there are also power-ups you get throughout the game. So there's a crystal launch that you get. And there's your shadowy figure that you can phase through one of the things in the games. I'm trying not to spoil it, but at the same time, I can only imagine people who have played it will be watching this video. But a lot of those things are set for very specific things. So you have the shadow dash, and it lets you pass this invisible, or not invisible, this black void thing, or you have the crystal dash to dash through this very long cavern that you can't otherwise jump through. And whilst they're built for those specific situations, it's so cool to have a mechanic that's not built for a specific situation and you could use in so many other settings. So one of them is the down smash. So you do it down smash, you break through like a brittle bit of floor, but you can also use it in combat. You can also use it to travel quickly. If you have a big hole and you can't be bothered like falling really slowly, down dash. Same thing with the crystal. It's to get past like this big open space that you can't otherwise jump through. But if you're running through an area, crystal dash, you move so much quicker. And the way that they implement all these moves so they're not specific to one scenario and you could use in so many other scenarios in the game, I think it's just good. They've not thought, okay, we need this power. They've gone, okay, we need this power, but it can do all of this and kind of like broaden their horizons. And I thought it was just really, really good. So from what I've talked about, I hope you guys would think that I've played a lot of the game. I've played majority of what the game has to offer. Fuck no. I've played 47 hours of the game. I think I've got 69% completion. I've done all the bosses. I've done most of the champions, I think. I think there are still some out there that I haven't beat. I beat the vessel. I can't remember any names. Where I fight the Hollow Knight and he's being controlled by the orange goop thing. Again, I don't know the lore going on. I've beat him and I've also beaten the Radiance because I know the Radiance is a very popular character throughout the game. And I kind of thought, oh, I've beaten everything. The only thing I need to beat is the pure vessel. Is that what it's called? I don't know. The Hollow Knight, but without him being controlled. And I was like, oh, I just need to beat him. And I've pretty much beat a lot of the game. No. You still have the Pantheon, which is to get to the pure vessel. But that still unlocks like a lot of other things. I know you could fight the Radiance again, but even harder. I don't know why anyone would subject themselves to that. The Radiance was already stupid hard for me, personally. There's another character who's red. I think you can also fight yourself, but you're not yourself. It's someone else kind of disguises yourself. You can unlock a lot of other things. My health was always white. Sometimes I'd add a few blue things. I've seen people with like orange health, and it kind of like doesn't disappear. It kind of like falls short. There's so much of the game. And again, because of the lore, and I haven't been keeping up with the lore, the amount of lore still to collect is stupendous. The game... I don't think people understand for people who haven't played the game, or even people who've just beaten the game and then put it down. The game is fucking huge. And I didn't know this until an hour ago. I just looked on TikTok for Hollow Knight stuff, just to kind of rejig and get some other things to talk about. But the game is massive. Every time I swiped down on a new Hollow Knight post, it was something, I was like, I didn't know that. What was that? And I'm not out here to complete the game 100%. I love the game. To the point I even got a tattoo. I'm not sweaty, by the way. Just my aftercare cream. Look at him. He's a cute little boy. I love the game, but I've never been one to 100% the game. I don't have all the charms. Like I said, I've not fought a lot of the bosses. I might come back and fight the pure vessel just because I think he looks like such a cool boss to fight. But all the other bosses, I don't really care about. I love the game, but I'm not one to 100% the game. I've not even 100%ed Elden Ring, and that is literally my number one game of all time. But yeah, super cool game. I loved it. I think it was a great experience. If you haven't played this and you're watching this, this is a message to you. Get the game. The game is phenomenal. You might not enjoy it for the first hour or two. Obviously, it's a completely new experience. I think Hollow Knight is something completely different to every other game. But there will be a point where you're like, oh my god, this is great. The exploration is great. The combat is great when you get used to the combat. Even the bits of lore you pick up, you'll be like, oh my god, this is really, really cool. And I hope I could get even more people to just start playing the game because it's so much fun. And I think it's genuinely, even with the big community it has, I feel like it still is a hidden gem because a lot of people who play games, I talk to them about it and they're like, what's Hollow Knight? Yeah, I don't really want to play it, like that sort of attitude. So yeah, I have a lot of passion for the game. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to kind of put my love out there for Hollow Knight and tell you guys how fucking cool I am because I beat the game after 5 years. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I hope to see you guys again. Bye.